So why did I decide to buy a brand new Lowrider ST? Let's talk about it. Alright, what's going on YouTube? FXDLS Brooklyn is back in the building. And we are out here over at O'Toole's Harley Davidson in Wurtsboro, New York. And it is a big day. This is actually still same day, my first day picking up and buying this bike. So definitely got that new bike energy happening right now. And you know, there's no better feeling. But I figured this warranted a video, you know, especially those of you who have been following my journey for a long time, back from when I bought my Dyna Lowrider S brand new back in 2016. Here we are 7 years later, you know, buying another new bike. You know, this is the second time ever I'm buying a new bike. And again, I know a lot of you are in the situation of maybe needing a new bike. And for a lot of you, the Lowrider ST is a consideration. So what are the reasons why I decided to buy this bike? Well, the first reason is not only did I test ride the bike, you know, I did test ride the bike when it was still fairly new, right? But that was a test ride that was less than 100 miles. You know, I was only out for maybe an hour or so, you know, so that test ride definitely left an impression, right? But the thing that really had me pull the trigger is, but the number one reason why is, those of you who followed my journey with this bike, Harley Davidson did send me one of these in Battleship Gray back in the fall. I got to hold on to that bike for a long time and really treat it like my own for a long time. I put thousands of miles on that bike, and I just found myself from the first day onward getting very, very attached to that bike. You know, you all know how it is, right? There's just some bikes that you sit on and it's just right in every possible way. Like, you don't have to adjust this, you don't have to adjust that. It's just right as it is. And there's just something to be said about a bike fitting you that good. For me, before this, that was always an FXR, right? I would always say nothing fits me better than an FXR. And then I sat on this bike. Don't get me wrong, it's hard to compare sitting on an FXR to sitting on this thing, but again, the only other bike that I've ever sat on that just made more sense to me in terms of my height and my weight and my riding style has been this bike. This bike fits me like a glove, right? And it's not just that. I know a lot of the complaints with this bike is definitely from the taller rider base, where this fairing just doesn't do the job. You know, you're getting a lot of helmet buffeting if you're a taller guy. Also, if you're a taller guy, mid controls could be hard for you, right? But for me, again, 5'7", I run mid controls on all my bikes, so that box is definitely checked off for me. Also, just the design on this fairing is perfect for my height. It cuts through the wind significantly better than my retro FXRT fairing that I've been running for years on my Dyna. And you guys know my journey with that. I had to go through a lot of blood, sweat, and tears to get my Dyna dialed in to do the things that this bike does out the box. That brings me to my first reason why I decided to buy this bike brand new, which is the capability out the box. You could literally run this bike hard out the box, and it has everything. You have your bags, you have your fairing, you have a big motor, you got everything, right? Now, that being said, when I did put extensive miles on this thing back in the fall, we did throw a Saddlemen STC Pro on it. That made it even better, right? But even just sitting on this thing stock, it's unreal how comfortable this bike is and how locked in you feel just out the box and having it be stock. So my first reason was, I always told myself if I ever was going to buy another new bike, I wanted it to be turnkey. I didn't want another FXDLS Brooklyn white flame project. Like, I already have that. That's my white flame Dyna. That's going to stay with me for life. Like, I've done the full-on crazy performance, crazy customization Dyna path. I've done that already, right? So I wanted something that would just be turnkey, reliable, that I could rip across the country and back and just keep doing that again and again. Performance wise, that's what this bike is built to do. This bike is built for the type of riding that I've been promoting for years, which is sport touring, which is you're going fast, you're going far, and you're not sacrificing performance to make that happen. So again, my Dyna Lowrider S, like, you saw that transformation over the course of 7 years. It took me 7 years to get that bike to where it was perfected for that type of riding. This one, straight out the box. You're getting it straight out the box. So straight out the box for a pretty reasonable price. So all of that combined, were all factors of why I knew I wanted to buy this bike new. Furthermore, all the riding that I did in the fall just left such an impression on me. This bike fit me perfectly. I love the performance of this bike, and I knew that there was no going back. You know, probably after I did one full day of riding on this bike, I knew in the back of my mind that one day this would be one of my main bikes. There was just no going back after doing a full day of riding on this bike and seeing the performance capabilities. So yeah, number one is just the bike. Like I said, personally, the bike just 100% fit me like a glove, right? The performance you get out the box, the price point that the bike is coming in at, assuming that you're getting it at a dealership that's not marking it up. I think the next reason is, like I said, I've said this in a previous video, but last year, you know, I would just be looking out at my garage and looking out at my Dyna Lowrider S, my 2001 Superglide Sport FXDX, and my FXR, and I would just say, that's it. I have the trifecta of performance Harley Davidsons. Two of the best year and model dynas ever made, as well as one of the best Harley Davidsons ever made, the FXR. And I would just say to myself, that's it. I don't ever need another new bike past these three bikes. I'm done, right? And then what happened is I threw a leg over this bike, and that all changed. Like I said this in a previous video. But there's another reason why it made sense for me to buy this bike, besides it just fitting me so good, and besides the raw performance that you get from this bike out the box. So my Dyna Lowrider S, the now White Flame FXDLS, that had always been my road bike, right? That had always been my bike that I would ride cross country with, do the bike trips with, do everything with, right? With the build that came through last year, specifically the 124 crate SNS motor, as well as the White Flame paint job, that bike is just in a completely different league now with that type of work done to it. So originally when I did that work, I said, yeah, I'm going to do this I'm going to do this sick paint job from Fast Life Garage, and I'm just going to destroy it. I'm still going to run the bike and do the cross-country trips, which I did plan to do, right? But then what I started to notice is doing the motor work and putting a hot rod motor in that bike and going that big, I started to realize that the bike itself was no longer as realistic an option as it used to be with that 110 with a cam in it. And it started to dawn on me really quickly that it was no longer going to be the best tool for the job in terms of doing long bike trips. Now, don't get me wrong. With a big motor like a 124, could you still do bike trips on it? Sure. But on the hot summer days, especially if you're dealing with some gnarly traffic, it ain't good. And that's always going to happen here or there on a bike trip. You're always going to have to go down some sketchy dirt road at slow speeds on a bike trip. There's always going to be stuff that happens, and that particular motor only wants to be doing extremely fast speeds all the time, right? So I kind of had built my Dyna Lowrider S up too much to the point where, again, I just no longer felt like it was the best tool for the job. Also, you know, that being said, my other fellow riders from New York will tell you this, but when you get past a certain point in the country and people see that you have New York plates, they usually assume if you're that far from New York City that you're a criminal running from the law or something crazy like that. And this has actually happened on the road before. Like, we've been profiled like this as riders from New York. We were actually detained once for hours. Our bikes ripped apart, things torn through everything. You know, local law thinking that we were bringing through whatever illegal item, you know, just because of the New York plates and the New York accent and, you know, the bikes that we were riding and everything that comes along with that. So there's actually times on the road where you want to stay low, which is, you know, the model of this channel, where you don't want to draw an unnecessary amount of attention to yourself. And then the thing that comes along with building your dream bike, like the White Flame FXDLS, is that is the loudest bike in every possible way. It's the loudest paint job. Like, you see that thing coming down the road and it catches your eye, right? You know that that's something. And with the motor and the Fab 28 exhaust, that bike is literally the loudest bike I've ever ridden. So those combined factors, sometimes when you're 1,000 miles from home and you're rolling through some small town, that's not the vibe you want to be projecting. Sometimes you just want to be staying low when you're on the road to avoid some unnecessary nonsense. And to me, that's where this bike came in, because it's like I wanted a bike for reliability, turnkey, that the motor wouldn't get too hot in certain situations and would allow me to actually stay low like my motto is. So now, This bike, leaving it with factory paint, you know, it's going to allow me to stay a little bit lower, where I'm just another dude on a white bike with a white helmet, right? And, you know, from what I'm seeing right now, specifically this paint scheme, we're going to be seeing a lot of these. And that's kind of what I want. You know, I have a bike that is completely unique and different from any other build out there. So I'm okay to have one bike that is going to look like tens of thousands of other bikes like it. Like, that's okay. This is going to be my minivan, right? This is going to be my realistic bike that I ride. It's not going to be like my White Flame FXDLS, which is like a AC/DC concert turned up to 11 everywhere you ride it, right? This is a little bit more realistic, but without sacrificing performance. Still got a 117 in it. This thing still rips, right? Not to mention that it just fits me better than any of my other bikes. The other reason why this was a bike that I just had to have, right, is because after I did finish my Lowrider ST miles with the one that Harley sent me, I had always said to myself, yeah, one day I'm going to get a Lowrider ST, and then I'm going to paint it a cream white, right? Because that's a color bike that I've always wanted. You know, my grandfather used to have a Mustang that was that cream white, the same exact color as this. So then, yeah, when I saw that they dropped this in this color, this particular color, I just said to myself, it's just too perfect. This was the bike that was designed for me and my riding style, and this was the color that I always wanted on a bike, right? This, like, it's called White Sand Pearl, but you could see the contrast with my helmet. It comes off like more of a cream, which is one of my favorite paints on any motorcycle or any car. So I had to have it, right? But that's my reasoning. If you're someone who is even the smallest bit curious about this bike, go test ride it. Hands down, one of the best bikes I have ever ridden, the best modern Harley Davidson available right now. And this is going to go down with the legendary Harley Davidsons, if it has not yet already. This is going to go down in history with your FXRs, your FXDXs, your Dyna Lowrider S's. This is going to be right alongside with those. And I'm really, really grateful and fortunate to have the opportunity to have this bike new. So that's where I'm at. As always, thank you all for checking out the content. Thank you all for being along with me for this new journey. Can't wait to get moving on this thing and start building. Stay safe out there and stay low. And on that, FXDLS Brooklyn is out.